tribulation, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The law, the light, the heart, the fight, the law, the right, the door.
And we are here to talk about
Eternals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Notice how I'm wearing this Batman shirt. We'll talk about why I'm wearing that Batman shirt today. But no, I'm just joking. What's going on, Lucas? How you doing, man?
I am absolutely amazingly great tonight, as we are here to talk about Zack Snyder presents the Eternals. I'm sorry. Marvel presents the Eternals.
Oh goodness. So you guys, this is gonna be a spoiler-free review. If you guys want us to do a spoiler-filled review, please let us know. We'll maybe come back to this later. We'll dissect to you guys our thoughts and perspective. But as you can tell from the media, this movie has been very divided, if not divisive, if not shunned by a certain group of people. So we're gonna give you guys our unfiltered perspective on the film, as we just saw it 2 nights ago now.
It was Monday night.
Yeah.
We saw this, as I think you all saw our first post reaction to it.
So yeah. So let's go ahead and dive into it right now. So the first thing I did want to talk about was the tone. The tone of this film is really interesting because it's really weird for how a Marvel movie kind of generally goes. Because as it's going, I was like, wait. The scope of this is really vast, but then this is really mythological. This is really serious, and the tone, it was like, okay, this is something very different. And I was really intrigued by that. I was like, okay, I want to see where they're going to go with this. But it's also a slow burn. It's also a process, and it's not like immediately action. There are action moments, but the tone really at times also gets really bleak, really dark, really human. For characters that are like so immortal in and of their own nature, like they are very flawed. They've got a lot of different emotional connections that you can kind of reflect and see, like, oh, okay, I can understand this character. But there's a lot of characters that are very vastly different than anything that the Marvel universe has ever tried to do, which we'll get into all that. But as far as the tone, Lucas, it does go back and forth with some things, and I was curious your perspective on the tone. And also your perception when you first started noticing what the movie really was off the gate.
Well, the issue is when you jump into this film and you automatically see the tone of this film, you're kind of wondering, do you are you watching a Marvel film or are you watching a DC film? Because the tone is completely different from anything that Marvel has ever done before.
Correct.
And I think that's something that sticks out a lot. And I'm not saying, again, we're not here to tell you if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No.
But the point that it completely sticks out from anything that you are accustomed to getting from Marvel was very interesting to see. And it's kind of obvious within the first maybe 5 minutes of the film. Like right at the beginning of this film, you kind of understand, like, okay, you're in for a completely different ride.
Yeah.
Than anything you've gotten from the MCU before. And when you get to that point of realizing you're in a different ride, maybe then your mind can adjust to understanding, like, this is not going to be Ant-Man, this is not going to be Iron Man, this is not going to be Thor, this is not going to be Shang-Chi, anything of that nature. So if that answers the question about what you expect when you get the tone of the film and when you're introduced to the film, what like the first perspective is. Again, right at the beginning of the movie, when you get introduced to the Eternals in an action scene, then like, okay, this is a tad bit different than what I'm accustomed to getting with Marvel films.
Very. So the other thing I wanted to go and ask you about is the violence and some of the darkness of the movie. It's weird because I don't know how to explain it. So there are fight scenes that are really visceral, like really, like I mean, I'm sitting there seeing people just dying, like humans that are just like getting like killed by the deviants or like casualties because of circumstance, and really kind of like Shakespearean in the way that certain people are just taken out. There's like a sex scene in this. Like it's just really strange how it attempts to be very adult and very specific in what the story and the narrative that Chloe is trying to convey with this, but then it also tries to keep you in line with like, no, this is still a Marvel movie. There's still quips, there's still comedic moments, even though this person just died. Like it's okay, you know. And it's kind of jarring because it keeps flipping flopping with that. For me, it was kind of like I don't know, like maybe you should just go and lean into it all the way versus trying to pull back. I could tell like a lot of the time the story and the narrative was trying to do something specific and it kept on getting pulled right back out. And some characters, I was just like, I don't know why you're doing what you're doing. But did you have any issue with that as far as the tonal shifts or also the difference between like darkness, the light, and certain circumstances in the film in general?
It's almost called welcome to the experience of Marvel not understanding how to lean fully into a movie.
Yeah.
Like when you're fighting yourself the entire film, you get these confusing conflicts that happen. Again, as you perfectly pointed out, it is some really violent death scenes in this film at times, and then it jumps right into humor. And you're like,
right,
that's not the way that should go. Like it's like they fought Chloe on the type of film they wanted to make.
yeah,
and that's the issue with it, is that she has a human element that she's accustomed to for her films.
yeah.
And here they were like, we still need to interject the Marvel element to this film. And if we don't interject it, we're going to lose an audience. But in turn, what happens is it just gets muddled for people who watch it.
Right.
Because this movie
go.
should be a heck of a lot more intense and serious than it comes across at times as being.
Yeah. Because even down to the Celestials and what's really actually going down. And I was just like, because I mean, from a philosophical standpoint, and really the sacrifice of things that are happening and how people are just being moved like pawns, you know what I'm saying? Like, because initially, you know, we all asked the question, like, oh, these Eternals, why the heck weren't they doing anything? Why didn't they stop this or stop that? Or, you know, like when you get the understanding of what's really going on, that goes out the door. You're like, oh, none of that matters.
I'm not gonna say it goes out the door.
Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
It's still questions because those elements still don't make sense in this movie. But with that, it's
yeah.
I said those elements don't make sense in that movie. I did not say anything else to spoil the movie, but it's because what you perceive as a bigger issue presents itself during a movie that it makes what Marvel's entire 24 films have been based on seem like a little issue.
Yeah.
Like that's what comes across, and you're like, okay, that's a little issue. The blip, who cares about that? Explain this more to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had to interject because you said it didn't matter. I said no, it focuses your direction somewhere else. But a person like me, I was still questioning, like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there is a character in this that legit directly asked that question, and you know, it comes from a really human place.
I'm about to say you could have said the character because it's in the trailer.
Yeah, but some people ain't
it's
seen the trailer.
It's literally in the trailer that he asked that question. Like that's it. Not only is it in the trailer, it's in Marvel's marketing promotion of the film.
It is. But you know what I'm trying to say.
It shouldn't have been. We know it shouldn't have been in there.
Like, yeah.
But it's in there.
So this is the thing I'll say that some people are not gonna like as just normal casual Marvel fans, but I appreciate it on certain levels with certain relationships. Some of the relationships in this are some of the most adult relationships that the Marvel universe has ever tried to do. Whether they did it correctly or not, or whether they pulled back or not, they at least Chloe at least had it in here. Like the writing is on the wall what she was really trying to convey. Because you're thinking, oh, okay, these beings live thousands of years, they just are cool, you know. Like there's real deep-seated relationship issues, connections, and things also that I was like, man, this is really immoral. Like, what is this character doing? Like, why are they doing this? And I just really found it really fascinating, the adult sections of how these characters interacted. Because it sucked in regard that for every moment that I was like, wow, this is a really good stride for character development.
Yeah.
And the actor is also trying to give us something with this. But then they pull back with the comedy moment and it loses its value in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how to put it.
It sounds like you have an issue with one particular character in this movie. Because he's literally the only comedic character in this film.
So I'm conflicted because he's actually funny. Like I actually love him as a comedian, and I think that there's moments in them, specifically with the character that he's working with. I think it's funny. I really do. I actually, but it's like
it's awkward.
It really is.
It's extremely awkward, and you're like, okay, I understand the need to interject humor here, but boy, did you pick in the wrong way to do that. And they do it through the whole second half of this film. And you're like, yeah, that's not the way to do that at all. Like, in my fact, not only is it not the way to do that, because you're doing it this way, I can't take this character seriously. And I don't think it's not a spoiler to say who the character is, because he's literally the only comedian in the cast.
Yeah.
Like it was so hit or miss, the things that they did with him. When it hit well.
They did. Like there were moments that I was like, wow, this really works.
When they missed, it was like shooting a 3-pointer from one end of the court to the other end and expecting it to go in and not being Steph Curry. Like it was huge misses, and you're like, just didn't put that right there. Like, you know, it'd just be great if you just didn't do it.
Yeah,
because he can act. He can really act.
Yeah.
He can really not kind of act. I'm sorry, Sam, but I mean not like kind of act. And this would piss. This is one of the few things that extremely angered me with this film. He's an amazing actor. Yeah. I've seen him blend drama and comedy before. Mm-hmm. This film is a drama. He is the comedic element in that drama. It should have been mixed better.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was written that way initially or if it was changed. You don't think it was changed in any way, shape, or form?
Because I think someone just had the bad idea that we're going to use this character as comic relief.
Yeah.
And it's lean into the diversity of him and make that a comedic element of the film. Because I was this close to saying that was kind of racist. But you let it slide because you understand the element that they're going for here. And he's such an amazing actor that you're willing to ride with it. But it's about running a joke into the ground. As any comedian telling any comedic film or any film that's not a comedy but has comedic elements, they always tell you don't run the joke into the ground. The joke started off extremely funny here. Mm-hmm. And then they ran it all the way into the ground to the point where you were annoyed by the end of it.
Yeah, I think that one thing I'll say is that what's his name? Haresh Patel, the guy that was working with him filming everything that was going on. He's actually a really good actor as well. And the thing about it I like is that he is the human element with these basically demigods. The whole entire way he's with them, but he understands his role. And every time, you know, Kumail's character starts to like you can tell psychologically Kumail's character is dealing with a lot of stuff. but they're oversaturating the comedic stuff that you can't really allow it to progress through. But every single time that he would go too far, like he would add this layer of like humanity that I was like, I really appreciate that kind of that counterbalance. So they worked well together, but it was like if they would have just dialed it down a little bit, it would have worked. And we're talking all over the place. Let's just get to the point. Okay. So Lucas, what did you feel about this film? And I'm gonna go and tell you what I felt about this film because we haven't said anything. We haven't said not one word to each other.
Hey. Besides our first reaction, we have not talked about this film in the slightest bit.
Not at all.
It feels way too disjointed. Like I was not even halfway through, 1/4 of the way through the movie because this movie is extremely long. I had higher hopes for this movie than I had for any Marvel movie beforehand. Because it was leaning into a direction and I was like, oh, if they go into this movie can be great. Not good, great.
Yeah.
And instead, every opportunity given, they pull back. And then they pull back again, then they pull back again to the extent that it gets, and I know some people have said, like, this is different than any Marvel movie you've ever seen. That's one thing I think me and Sam disagree with. It's not. It's literally, it becomes a typical Marvel movie, not executed as well as typical Marvel movies. So it leaves you wanting so much more out of this film. So I left here like, okay, you've wasted an Oscar winner. You've wasted another actor who I think is good. Matter of fact, you wasted 2 other actors that I think are really good.
Are you talking about Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, Brian is amazing. Brian is amazing.
You wasted something that you hyped up. Like you hyped up a certain relationship in this film that was in this film for all of maybe 7 minutes. Max, maybe. Like it was, this is the film of missed opportunity, but I'm still happy that they took the chance at it, if that makes any sense to anyone out there. I'm happy they took the chance, but that doesn't mean the execution was at all well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll break down, our closing thoughts when we get to it. I'm similar to what Lucas has said. By the end of it, I will say, by the end of the movie, they just wrap that thing in like a little bow. It's like, here you go. Here's where we connect everything back, and here's where this ends on this interesting little punchline that's like cookies and
pissed
rainbows.
me off more than anything else.
Like I was kind of like at the end of it, I was like, yo, people are just like, when I say there was death, you guys, like it was bad. And I was like, I don't know what they're gonna do, and I don't know what this means for the universe, but this is terrible. And they decide to kind of just really just hone it in and marvel it up to the point that it's like, oh, okay, well, this is easily digestible. And this end credit scene, which we'll get to later on, but for me, the journey of where they were trying to go and the risk that Chloé was trying to take, I applaud her with the effort. In all honesty, I really think that there was something special here. And if it was allowed to be executed correctly, I think it might have been one of the best Marvel movies they've ever done. Because the thing about the film, which we hadn't talked about yet, is the scope, man. The scope, the depth of field, the visual effects, like a lot of the practical, visuals were just like, I mean, when I say like not everything in this was just CD, like they actually took some time and like gave us locations around the world.
Yes.
They allowed, characters to be filmed in a way where it's not just a close-up, not just an action one, but no, like we're going to take time and focus in on this character's psychological profile. What's going on right now? There's a shot in the movie where they're at, I think, is it the Mayas? It was some pyramid where there was like Mayans. A war going on.
Yes. Yeah.
That shot, and then what was going on with what character was it? What's my man's name? Because he's actually a really good actor. Yes, Barry. Barry. Yeah, first of all, Barry is a great actor, but the character Druid, when that scene was going off, I was like, oh, he about to kill this scene. And I was like, he did good, but I was like, it could have been so much more because the conflictions that are happening between the immortals are so deep, especially with Angelina Jolie. Like psychologically, her character is the most imbalanced character in this, and yet she's supposed to be one of the most warrior, powerful ones. Like she's on par, if not, greater than what you would expect from a Wonder Woman. And at first, I was like, okay, this is gonna be great. And then they add an interesting element to it. I was like, oh wow, that's an interesting jump from a relational standpoint. And then they don't do anything with it after that. And I was like, why? You did.
I'm holding back so much as Sam is talking right
now. No, I'm trying not to say anything.
No, not to spoil anything. I'm just holding back my thoughts because listen, how the hell do you ruin Angelina Jolie in the film? You literally gave her an interesting backstory and didn't.
Great backstory, dude. Like she was probably in the beginning, in the first half of the movie, I was like, this is the character I need to pay attention to because I was like,
yes,
you don't realize how really dangerous she really is psychologically, and it's for a justifiable reason because I don't want to spoil it, but these characters have been living on Earth for thousands of years, and what does that do to a person? Like they really asked that question, what does that do psychologically to be on this Earth for X amount of time and to just allow certain things to happen? It's just fascinating how it could have went.
Do you agree that the interesting question would have been these characters on Earth for thousands of years? How does this have an impact on them until they reveal a big secret about them? And then you question, well, why does any of this make sense?
We can't talk about it.
No.
I know what you're saying, though.
We can't go into detail what the secret is, but I'm saying is when they do that, it kind of erases a lot of what you think about these characters, and you're like, oh, so I just don't care anymore. Yeah, they take away the need for you to care about these characters themselves. You ain't got to worry about anything else. They're going to take away the need for you. And when they take away that need, it really brought the movie down even more for me. And that was the issue. First, let me say, Eternals. I don't read comic books. Sam is no help here because Sam does not read the Eternal comic books.
I do not.
In the comic books, for my comic book folks out there, please tell me that their powers don't suck as much as they do in this movie. Because they are horrible. If these are the Eternals and these are the powers that you give to these beings to be on Earth for thousands of years, why do they suck? Why do I have a Superman who has no super strength or anything else? All he has is laser beams. Why do I have a Flash who can only kind of go fast? Like, it's so many questions I have for these beings who are supposed to be gods.
Yeah,
Secondly,
so I want to hold on. I want to comment on that.
Go ahead.
So the thing I think of that's funny about that is that do you think if they would have put any of these characters around somebody like a Thor character,
Thor's stronger than every one of these characters.
But that's the thing that I was gonna say is that based on the verbiage in this one, that's supposedly technically not true. Just based on principle. And that's the thing that I feel like that's where they kind of messed up because we're gauging this on them looking at themselves with the Deviants. And that's it. That's the only thing they're going with.
Yes.
The Deviants are supposed to be 10 times stronger than what we've seen the Avengers to be. And that's why I say that if there was a character like Thor, who was one of the strongest, and he was, interjected with these characters and they showed like, oh, wow, like he can't even keep up with them or he's not even what I'm saying? I don't think that they showcase their abilities and capabilities with what we've already seen because there's nothing to go. This is a standalone film.
So it's nothing to go off of.
And because it's a standalone film, we don't have anything to compare this off of. Whereas like if there was just one little scene, it's like, oh wow, no, I was there when, the Thanos snap happened. I was just walking around and seeing they didn't do anything like that.
So the thing would be, and the issue would be, that they don't properly show the Deviants' power level.
Well, I don't know. Everybody's getting milliwaps, so I don't know.
No. I say they don't properly show it because the Eternals' powers come across as so weak
compared to
anyone else in MC. Hell, even Iron Man in his magical suit that can do everything all of a sudden seems to be more powerful than an Eternal is. But it's because we don't have a perception of just how strong the Deviants are.
Exactly.
Except for one thing that could really help. And Marvel, let me help you out here. You know what you should have leaned into? Let me lean in my mic as I say this. Thanos is half deviant. If your asses would have leaned into that Thanos is part deviant, maybe people will understand their power level even more. Because if he's half of that, and you get a full deviant, you would understand just how strong they are. But because of what you said, and because of the way that you wanted to present the Eternals and present why they wasn't present during the snap and everything that Thanos did, and not pointing out that he's partially deviant, it skews the power level of your heroes.
Yeah.
Maybe we will understand Richard Madison's character even more and how strong he would actually have to be to defeat one of those things instead of him flying and partially shooting laser beams out his eyes.
Right, because he was presented to supposedly be the strongest of the Eternals.
Yes.
I think that's correct.
The Superman of the Eternals, as you would call him, as Chloé calls him in the movie, and Marvel has done a great job of hyping up that they bring up Superman's name in this movie.
I couldn't believe they got away with that. How the heck did they do that?
Because Warner Brothers was like, nigga, if you're going to compare him to Superman, by all means do it. you know what he doesn't come across as? Nearly as strong as Superman. Goodness. So go ahead and compare him to Superman. We don't mind. We don't mind one bit so. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
The biggest red herring of this film, and the biggest thing that people should talk, and look at that. Damn shame. None of them look anything of like that. Anything at all like that. But none of them look anything like that. But let's give, to me, the biggest issue with this film. It is directed by the wrong person. Marvel, let me speak to y'all again quietly here. If you were going to do this movie in this direction, you might as well have hired Zack Snyder to do it. Because you know what? And people who are on JVS, they understand how much I don't like Zack Snyder. But guess what? He'd have been a perfect person to direct this film. Chloé is not the perfect person to direct this film. It is Zack Snyder. From the human element to the God element to the supernatural element, guess what? It's literally a Zack Snyder film without Zack Snyder directing it. And that was your flaw. If you truly want to know your flaw of the Eternals, that was your flaw of the Eternals, is you picked the wrong person to direct it. You know what DC was smart enough to understand? When they wanted to do another Suicide Squad, they understood they wanted to do a James Gunn type of film. So they hired James Gunn to do it. If you all would have hired Zack Snyder to do this film.
Oh, God.
God forgive me for what I'm about to say. If you'd have hired Zack Snyder to do this film, you would have the best Marvel film ever done. Because he'd have nailed this movie.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Every element in this film that Chloé struggled with, Zack would have nailed it. You hired the wrong person for this film. And for anyone who understands the past of how Chloé got this film, Chloé was a finalist to direct Captain Marvel.
Yeah, that's right.
She should have directed Captain Marvel because those sensibilities in Captain Marvel are better under Chloé than the movie you got, because no one likes Captain Marvel as a movie. But if Chloé would have directed that film, you'd have got a much better film. And if Zack would have directed The Eternals, you'd have got the best Marvel film ever made. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because if you're not going to let her lean into her sensibilities, then why do you hire her to do? Why did you hire her to do this film?
Do you want to answer that question that's at the bottom from Cora?
Because she's a woman. That's the only reason you hired her to do this movie. You wanted a diversity hire because you wanted a film that pretended to be a diversity film, but in the end, the white people are the most prominent characters in the movie.
That ain't what she said. Cora asked, the movie was it that bad?
I'm not answering that until we get to the scorecard. It's a little bit longer if the movie was that bad. Right now, I'm just going to get my gripes with the film because I think this film has positive things, positive moments, and everything else in it. But when I noticed halfway through this film, I leaned over to Sam and said, it'd be better if Zack Snyder would have directed this movie.
Look, hey, when he said that to me, y'all, I was
because it was obvious. It was clearly obvious.
I was like, he hates sex. I was like,
it
when
was
he said that to me,
obvious.
I was like,
who could have nailed this film for them? No. And every bit of bad press they're getting, every bit of bad press. Currently, it is sitting at 62% on Rotten Tomato as the lowest rated Marvel movie. The reason why is because you hired the wrong person to do this film. Because Marvel knew who they were. They were never going to allow her, Chloé, to make the film 1,000% so the way she wanted to make it. You know who can adjust to a studio not wanting him to do a film 1,000% the way he wants to do it? Zach. Because they'd have gave him just enough to do this film the way he wanted to do it. And that's my problem.
All right, so let's talk about two different things. We had made a statement in our reaction where we talked about the acting. Yes. And I wanted to kind of hone in on that because I don't want people to misconstrue that we're saying that the acting was bad in this film. We didn't say that. I think that there's some very strong moments, some strong performances that are showcased in this one from some of the actors that I didn't even think that they had it in them. I think it was just misplaced and timed wrong in the way that the moments were happening. Like it would be one moment where I was like, there's a scene where what is her name? Because she's deaf. She's actually a really decent actress. Lauren Ridloff.
She definitely is one of the best things of this movie.
And she got the understanding that somebody had perished. And like she's just emoting. Like she's really starting to you feel it. But and matter of fact, tears starting to go. And all of a sudden they just divert to some funny thing in the background as opposed to honing in on what she's feeling right now. Matter of fact, they had an opportunity with each different character. And every single time they would make a comedic moment diverting it or subverting it. And I was just like, if you're not gonna allow them to really do it, then why push it? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. What was your take on the acting and the way that it was kind of misplaced or used in this film?
I already started off by saying that you wasted an Oscar winner in this film. You wasted an Emmy winner because I think Brian has won an Emmy. I want to say he has.
Brian's won 2 or 1.
Yeah, so you wasted a multiple Emmy winner in this film also. But Mr. Don Lee is a freaking superstar in this movie. My goodness. Every time he was on screen, I could not wait to see more of him. Yeah. I absolutely love his character in this film. Man, listen, I could do an entire movie with just his character. And his character plays strongest opposite Angelina Jolie in this film.
Yep.
His compassion, his passion, and everything in it is so great. Look, at this point, I got to go back and see everything else he's done. Because I need to see more of him.
Look at Train to Busan.
Yes, I've seen Train to Busan.
Okay, you have. Okay.
He is amazing in this movie. He's the best. I don't care what anybody else tells you. He's the best actor in this film. Hands down. His performance is better than everyone else's performance. I loved his performance in this movie because they gave him way more of the human element with his performance.
Yep.
And it didn't feel forced because there's another character in I want to say her name right. Is it Gemma? Gemma?
Was it the character that was Spike or
No. The main lead.
Cersei's.
Yes.
Cersei. Oh, okay, yeah.
Is it
Just
Gemma? Germa Chan is good, but at times her character feels forced, and Don's character never feels forced in this film.
It's always natural, bro.
Yes, every time he comes on screen,
sincere,
it's extremely.
Oh
it's man,
so like weird, man.
You hear the term "a quiet force" a lot when it pertains to certain performances, certain actors. That's what I felt with his performance.
Yeah,
he wasn't billed as the strongest Eternal, but the entire time I felt he was.
Right.
And not just from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, he felt like the strongest Eternal. I absolutely love, man, look here. Look, I developed a man crush on him for this movie. I absolutely love him in this movie, man.
Dude, I ain't gonna lie, like I was really surprised how much of his, I don't know, you know how like certain actors, they have a certain zeal to them?
Yes.
And it kind of comes out. This in this film, like Chloé, she understood how to utilize this man very well. And he just naturally just elevated it to a way that I was just really surprised by. We got to talk about elephant in the room in some capacity because I did like certain parts about his character. So, okay, all right, I'm gonna say this. Brian Ty Henry, I thought that his powers were very fascinating. I don't think they fully really
realized what they should have been.
Went the direction they should have, because there's a moment where, I kid you not, this man is in he was in Hiroshima after it went down, and he was having a conversation with one of the other Eternals and just starting to break down. And I was like, well, why couldn't y'all show me a small moment before how he got led up to this? Because the next time we see his character, he's in a very different place. And this is one of the first.
Very forced relationship.
Yeah. Very first. Man. Yeah.
I said forced relationship. Yep. Very forced relationship. A LBGTQ plus relationship. I know I'm missing letters there. I know.
I'm glad you said plus, because I was trying to say it, but yes.
Yeah.
He has he's got a husband, he's got a son, and yet it's so fascinating because they don't overly dramatify that. Like, it really does come off very naturally. And I thought that they were gonna ham it up, but then it comes out of nowhere.
Samuel,
what?
I am not gonna allow you to say that. Did they not play sad music when them two were on screen together? You're not gonna get away and say they didn't ham it up.
Okay, the kiss, yeah,
they hammed that up.
Kiss,
completely hammed it up.
Before that, when they
walked away slow. They walked away in slow motion.
But when they got to the house, and
yes,
it was just
that scene was
all
natural.
That was very natural.
Yes.
Everything, even like going to putting the kid to bed, was really natural. And I just felt like they underutilized him, because in the second act, like, I was like, wait, how strong is this Joker? Like, I was like, y'all needed him a long time ago, because if his capability is here, he understands. Well, I don't want to say certain things about physiology,
but his power has to do more with physics.
Yeah.
So you would assume he would actually be the strongest Eternal.
Yeah.
Because of that. And they managed to show how strong his character can be, but it's at a point of the film where you're like, well, that means you wasted him this entire movie. But keep in mind, he's also only in the movie for maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think him and Lauren were in the movie the least amount of time through the whole.
But here's the messed up part, though. He's in the movie for maybe 20 minutes. Angelina Jolie's in the movie maybe 30. Don Lee's maybe 30. Like, a lot of these characters that they introduce are not in the movie a long time. And I know when we say 20 to 30 minutes, you may be thinking, but that's a significant amount of time. Not in a movie that's 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
That's not a long period of time to be in the movie. And unfortunately, we are left as an audience with the least interesting Eternals for most of the movie.
I do think that, and this is gonna sound really bad because they I don't know how to say this right.
Millie
Selma
Bobby Brown
Hayek's
would have been better
character,
to hire. Oh, I thought you were going to say that. Okay, go ahead. But Selma Hayek's character.
Selma Hayek's character Ajax, I felt like she was written better than what Selma was delivering to me.
Ooh.
And I felt like honestly that she could have been recasted because I felt like the way that they wrote her character, I was like, this is a very important character. And there's different things that supposed to connect the thread to all of them.
Mhm.
But throughout most of the movie, when they were talking about her and they were, seeing her and having conversations with her, I didn't feel any of that. And I don't know if that was her acting towards it or
I'm about to say, I didn't see that as her acting. I literally saw that as the writing. They literally gave her character nothing to do. She's supposed to be the lead Eternal, and she had nothing to do for the entire movie. They gave her nothing to do.
Now, that was a scene that really did tick me off with some wolves because I asked myself, what is her freaking power, dog? Because
she can
that made no sense.
She can heal. She can heal. That was her power.
So
now you understand.
Live the longest amount of time than anybody.
Now you understand why their powers make no sense. It makes no sense at all. They have some of the worst.
Okay, that does.
powers.
Okay, that.
But
okay.
she was healing all the rest of the Eternals because that's her power. She's a healer. But again, to me, the role wasn't written well. It should have been way more in depth on the importance of her character. And you really don't get that at all. And that's a flaw that you can't have in a film like this. Not with her character being as big as it is. But we still need to get to the key part of this film, Sam. The elephant in the room, the true elephant in the room we have not talked about, which is the Celestials. Because they are going to play the biggest element to me moving forward for Marvel. They're going to be a huge element.
Yeah, I mean, since their introduction in Guardians of the Galaxy, we've kind of like, wait, what? Like they had a play in, creating the stones. They had a play in creating the way that this universe is managed.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, when you really truly get to understanding the depth of where Marvel is leaning into, this is on a different cosmic level, and I think that I'm very excited by it. Especially leaning into the 2 post-credit scenes that we'll get into a little bit later, because now we've reached a level that I'm very happy about and surprised by.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm kind of like, some things don't add up. I don't know how to put it.
I'm about to say
I don't know how to.
These Celestials are supposed to be these incompetent, powerful beings. Guess what? This movie doesn't show them as being any of that. Any of that. Matter of fact, it literally shows that maybe they don't make good decisions. And that for beings that's supposed to be the most important element of your universe, it's things that happen in this film as it pertains to the Eternals and the Celestials. When it happens, as an audience, you're left wondering, like, wait a minute, that makes absolutely no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And when it makes no sense, it makes you question how powerful are the Celestials. Do you know the point you can question that in a movie is not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Thanos comes across as more powerful than the Celestials at times in this movie.
Oh, Jarrell did ask a question I got to answer. So Jarrell asked, what were the character interactions like with the Celestials?
Absolutely horrible.
What were the scenes like with the Celestials? I don't think he's talking about like the dialogue. I think he's talking about like the depth of
No, no,
like
no,
the
no.
visual
No,
aesthetic of it.
no. That's why I say absolutely horrible. I was
So I didn't.
very
So I didn't have
consistent.
any. I didn't really have a
Keep in
problem with.
mind what the Celestials were in this film.
I
How
mean,
many?
they
In all
basically
honesty, no. How many scenes did we see with the Celestials? It's not many,
maybe
and
3.
their interactions weren't great. Like they
No,
did nothing to really show you anything of them. And I'm being very vague because we're not spoiling anything by me saying it shows you nothing.
So what I was gonna say was that
You
'cause-
remember?
'cause
You remember? I know I'm interrupting Sam, right? Because Sam is trying his best to make excuses for this movie. But you remember Dark Side from Zack Snyder's Justice League?
of course I do.
Okay. How much impact did he have on that story? Not much,
Wow.
right? Not much, right? He was there, omnipresent, there, but not much impact.
hmm
That's the Celestials and Eternals. Present, omnipresent there, but not much impact.
So okay, this is what I was trying to say. Because Chloé was talking about in an interview that when any of the Eternals or anybody is interacting with these Celestials, it's supposed to feel like they are legit, like, you know, giants or gods or whatnot, and everybody in between is just a speck. And I think that from an IMAX standpoint and from a shot standpoint,
Yes.
it made them look vast. Like, I mean, to the point that, like, I think one time Cersei was connected and looked at something, and I think she just saw like a dream of something. And it's like, I think she was right there at the tip of, like, not even his eye. And I was like, I would have loved to see what this looked like in IMAX. So I think that shot was really dope. The interactions and the intermission and the points don't make sense because honestly, they make the Celestials basically to be the gods of the Marvel universe, and everything that's happened from this point has been surrounding them, even to the point of like even the beginning of how things happen. And a lot of the choices kind of come off really human versus
Gods versus
omnipresent.
gods.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like
Like,
it
it makes no
doesn't.
sense.
But then again, this goes to comic books, and this I think that's why I say that it keep going back and forth with like trying to go for something, and then pulling back from how deep they could have made it. But I don't know. At the same time, but yeah,
They needed to make them feel like a bigger presence than they do in this film. Because again, when we think about the Celestials and you think about how important they should be, something happens in this movie that takes away the importance of a Celestial.
I wouldn't say it takes away from the importance.
You don't think
Because
it did? We can't say what it
because
is. You know what I'm talking about. You
I
tell
know
me it didn't take away the importance. Because keep in
but
mind, it made a hierarchy
it
when it
did.
pertains to Celestials. That makes no sense.
It did, but what I'm saying is that they're still there. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, when I say it makes them not important, because in all honesty, the film happens. Everything in the film happens.
Oh,
Now
I
you
get what you're
understand what I'm
talking
saying.
about.
Yes, it makes no sense.
Well, okay, so there is a reason for that, which
I'm
I
pretty
can't
sure
talk about.
a sequel.
No.
Pretty sure.
No. It's I can't say it, but it's tied to
Comic
something
is
very
it
important.
is it comic book logic? I hate comic book logic.
I know that, Lucas, but I'm
I
saying
hate
that
comic book
it's
logic.
very important for certain things that I can't talk about. But yeah, no, that I do agree with you. If that can happen, it's like, oh shoot, man,
If
let's
the
get the right
events, just
people and
say,
take
I'm
care
about
of all
to
this.
say, in all honesty, just say if the events of this film are logical in the MCU, what's the point?
I mean, but that goes back to our initial conversation: is that we don't have any kind of comparison to the mortals that we know that have been working.
But Thor's not immortal. He's literally a god.
Yeah, but I
So
don't
is he a
think-
celestial? Is Thor celestial?
No, he's not.
Why wouldn't he be? He's a god, right?
Yeah, but the Eternals are basically gods.
But Thor's a god.
That's what I'm saying. But it's not.
So
it's not the same.
Odin
though.
is the possibly most powerful person in MCU.
Right?
Is he not an Eternal?
Wait. Why are you going down this direction?
See.
I'm not going down this direction.
No. Welcome to the questions I had while watching this movie.
Oh
Because
yeah, I
it
get your
makes me
mindset.
question a lot of what I've seen. Because then Odin is omnipresent. So wouldn't he be a celestial? I know for a fact, without, because it's not a spoiler, I know for a fact that Thanos is supposed to be a deviant. And I also know for a fact Thanos could not fight Odin and win.
Right.
So
But
wouldn't Odin be a celestial?
I mean, that's the no, because
So he's just a regular god?
look,
You know what? I'm done asking questions because again, comic book logic. I get it.
Right.
I get it. It exists. It exists. You have introduced gods different than the gods that you already introduced in the MCU. It makes no sense to me.
Hey, no,
Not at all to me.
I understand where Lucas is trying to say, because this movie, you guys, this is very set apart. This is the most disconnected of pretty much any of the other MCU movies up until a certain point. Even though they are showing this shroud that they've been around this whole entire time, it's still very disconnected, because one of the Eternals is like, oh yeah, I hung out with Thor, I taught him something. I forgot what they said.
Yep.
And that was he was like, he kind of taught like Thor was just a kid in comparison to how old he was. And so
It should be true because they showed the Eternals from the beginning of time.
Right. So it's kind of
So then,
like,
when shouldn't have been the comparison of him and Odin? Because Odin would be much longer than Thor.
look, hey, I'm just what I'm trying
See
to
my questions?
I get your
my
question.
question?
I'm trying to tell
Mhm.
everybody that's watching this, because that's not seen the movie, so they understand that there's nothing to compare the hierarchy, the age, the strengths of these Eternals. We're seeing Eternals getting milliwatt. We're seeing Eternals being very strong. We're seeing Deviants doing crazy things, and we're seeing Celestials for the very first time. But we don't understand or have any kind of connection to what we've seen in the past with any of the villains or the
None.
heroes.
Mhm.
And so there's no understanding of how serious this movie really is. And that's why I say I can't say that it's not important, because I don't know. I don't know outside of the comics, how important the events that are happening to this, or how strong they really truly are. Because it's kind of like the Lawrence character could honestly be one of the strongest out of anybody that we've ever seen before. Because I was like, she's able to go from one place to another in seconds. And she had a fight scene, and I was like, wait, what can she really do? And I was like, nobody would be able to stop her in any fight that we've ever seen.
Because they don't have a full, in this film, they didn't have a full understanding of the power levels of the characters that they were introducing?
I don't know if it was they didn't understand. I don't think that they articulated or showed the audience the capability.
And to me, that's not having a full understanding of it. If I can't articulate to you, show you, present it in a way for you to fully grasp the power level of these characters, that's a flaw. Because maybe I don't fully understand how to show you that power level. I said Thor is a small G god. Guess what? That's why I didn't say Thor. I said Odin. Odin ain't a small G anything in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, Odin's been around.
Odin has been around for thousands of years.
But to be fair, Odin had a dad.
So would his dad have been an Eternal? You see why it makes no sense to me? And guess what? Because someone put on there, man, you need to read the comics. Let me explain this to you. If I have to look at a different form of media to understand the one you're presenting to me, it's because you failed in presenting it the proper way. And that is the issue here. Is we've talked and we've said that the power levels seem extremely weak for the Eternals here. We've said that we don't understand just who they are because, again, at one moment their power level seems extremely weak. At another moment, their power levels seem. People who thought Superman power levels in Justice League were overblown, watch this movie and then say that again to me. You can't. You can't.
Especially in the
third
final
act.
act. Because the final act,
they don't know, they don't understand power levels here. So that's the problem.
Okay, so this is the thing that I feel like should have been reclarified is what does it take to take them out?
Yes.
Like at some point, it should have been established what does it take to remove a Eternal? Can a mortal kill Eternal? Can a demigod kill immortal like Thor? Or is it just like legit like what is it?
Deviants and Eternals?
What was that during
are they the only ones that could take out each other?
I was thinking about gods versus titans. You know what I'm trying to say? Like gods versus titans. Because that's what it's really honestly, even like the names of them, they're taken from the mythology that we know. Like and so I felt like it was almost like that. And that's what I've always
welcome to my other issue with Thor and Odin's names. And then me hearing the names from Eternals and me saying, all those sound extremely similar to one another. I know enough about Greek mythology to have questions about what you're presenting to me. And I'm like, this is odd.
Yeah.
And you don't take time. And again, this is for people who are looking for this film to connect to the overall MCU. Those are the missed opportunities of explaining things to you.
Yep.
Because that's all you had to do. You show these characters from the beginning of time until present day. And yet, you don't show any full interaction or really, truly any mention of the main characters in the MCU that we're accustomed to seeing. To truly show you or explain to you the power levels, the differences between them, because this is stuff you have to show us for us to care. When you don't do that, it really makes you question everything else you're seeing here.
So I want to comment on this real quick. Peace Walker, I appreciate you for commenting. I thank you for watching this. Make sure y'all leave a like if you're watching this. I can't believe we're still going at this at 58 minutes and we still haven't clarified where our numbers are. You said that you're thinking too much. It's a Marvel movie. Go look at colorful shots, laugh at the jokes, and see their spoon-filled story. So this is my thing about this film. The film, in the way that it's being presented to me, is trying to make me think depth. It's trying to make me see tone. It's trying to make me like feel all these other kind of things.
Peace Walker is talking about a typical MCU film. This is a drama.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Maybe you missed the beginning. Maybe you missed the beginning part of our discussion.
We've been talking for a while.
This film, which is 2 hours and 40 minutes long, has 5 action scenes in it. 5 of them. And guess what? When we say 5 action scenes, for a total of maybe 20 minutes. So the other 2.5 plus hours of this film is no action.
Yeah.
So then you can't say, look at the colorful shots, the laughs, because there are not many of them in this film. And here's the weird part. It's not many colorful shots in this movie either. Because they don't go for color in this movie. I literally said a Zack Snyder film because the color palette was also stole from Zack Snyder. It's not really big, colorful moments in this movie. Okay? So anything you're accustomed to seeing in an MCU film does not exist here. Yeah. So you got to go in understanding that. So for a person like me who has said every MCU film, I could cut my brain off because they don't matter. I
Yep,
don't care.
yeah.
Name them. None of them matter. Down to the 3-hour thing that y'all saw that y'all still claim is a movie. That's not a movie. It's a 3-hour long commercial. None of it mattered to me. This film opens the gate for you to imagine more from what
Yeah.
Marvel can do.
Yeah.
The problem is the execution of that imagination. And that's the problem with the Eternals. Does that make it a good thing or a bad thing? We're not going to say. We're about to say it soon because we're close to the end of this review. But all of it is there. Every bit of it there. And yes, East Blue Drew, I absolutely hate Zack Snyder. I call him Snyder Luther King Jr.
He
because
does.
you people follow him like he's a god for some odd reason. I hate Zack Snyder. I hate everything he's ever done in life. Even past film, I hate everything he's done in life. And I don't even know him personally. And I don't like Zack Snyder. But I know he'd have made a better movie than what I got presented here because his sensibilities fall more in line with what this film was supposed to be.
Yeah. So who was the
Geek
main
Shaw.
villain?
Who's the main villain? There is none. I would, you know what, Geek
Who
Shaw?
was the ant to ask that question?
I don't even know. You know what? You tell me when you see this movie. Let me know who the main villain in this movie is, because I'm gonna be flabbergasted no matter who you name.
So with every drama, like every real raw drama, there's not necessarily just a clear cut
Villain
antagonist or protagonist, and this movie attempts to do that. The problem, like Lucas said, is the execution of how you're supposed to be. It's supposed to be an impression. It's supposed to be left so you can be able to gauge back and forth or question it, and at the same time be entertained by it or feel something from it. And sometimes the movie does that, and sometimes it doesn't. But yes, let's do this last thing. What were the things you liked about this movie, and then what's your final thoughts on this movie? Because we hadn't talked about things we liked.
Yes,
and then
yes.
What's
I've always said it, even through all the DC movies that I hated, and I'm constantly mentioning DC movies because that's what this movie is to me. It is a DC movie. I've always said about DC movies, what I love what they did was that they took a chance. Even if the execution wasn't done well, you decided we're going to do something different. I love the Eternals because even though the execution wasn't done well, at the beginning of the film, they said they were going to do something different. And it feels that way. Down to the caring, down to the emotion, down to everything it tries to pull out of you. I'm not saying they were ever successful with any of it, but the point that you even attempted to do something different, especially for me personally, knowing the background of the MCU, I understand why Kenneth Branagh, who's about to possibly win an Oscar, did not direct Thor 2 because the direction he wanted to go into. I understand that you completely didn't change the Thor 2 that Alan Taylor made to fit into the MCU. I understand that Ava DuVernay passed on Black Panther because when you told her you can't make the movie you want to make, you got to make the movie we want you to make. Here, it felt like it was more of a struggle between the movie Chloé wanted to make versus the movie Marvel wanted to make. The point you even allowed that struggle to exist, as someone who loves cinema, I'm happy about it. Beyond the execution of it. Don Lee is now my man Crush Mondays. I absolutely love him in this movie. He's amazing in this movie. I love everything about him in this movie. And at times when we get to lean into the human element of it, this movie really works well. Yeah. It really works well. And it's shot beautifully. It's some of the best looking practical scenes you're going to get out of a film. Like, granted, sometimes the scenery is shot and you're wondering, like, why would you even need to do that? But it looks great. So I'm happy with it. Like, those are some of the positive things for this movie for me.
Yeah. For me, I thought the human element really worked when it was really going for it, when it was really challenging, when the characters were challenging each other and their purpose or their role or their ethics. I really was starting to feel something, and I was like, this is really fascinating. Kit Harington's character plays the role of Dane. He's got a relationship with character Cersei, and he kind of much like the other guy, like was kind of the human, like the fly on the wall, like asking these probing questions, but also giving her positive reinforcement versus the relationships that she was in before. And just sometimes like superhero movies don't care to do that. It doesn't even matter. And to the point, like Brian Tyree Henry's character has a conversation in the main ship towards the third act with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is where this could get very fascinating, but instead, they go a different route. But I was like, they at least did it. They at least attempted to make you think more, make you try to emote to something, to come from something. And even characters that were making terrible decisions, doing terrible things, you could see the confliction on them. You could see like their emotions were just all of it. As much as we were talking about Angelina Jolie and how they underutilized her, when she did work, oh man, I was like, this could be a revelational moment. You know what I'm saying? And it just didn't. The payoff wasn't worth what happened, but the things that they could have done and the things that she attempted to do that did work, it worked very well. My favorite characters, like I said, was Lauren, Brian. I did find Kumail very funny. I felt he's so funny, but I was like, he's such a good actor too, because I was like, they could have allowed him, especially with his relationship with what's the character? Icarus.
Yes.
His character in Icarus, there should have been some other connective tissue to their characters that could have allowed Kumail to have an emotional and dramatic connection instead of like playing and hamming off of another younger character. That I was like, what are you doing? Because I felt like her character sometimes worked and just really sometimes didn't.
So in other words, did you also feel that Millie Bobby Brown should have gotten that role? Because they made a big deal that she was up for it, and then they gave it to someone else, and maybe they shouldn't have.
I think that Millie would have been perfect for that.
Yes.
To be honest with you, because
absolutely perfect for it. I'm highly confused after seeing this movie how she did not get that role, because the one you put in the role shouldn't have been in the role. I just hate to say it that way.
Was it scheduling conflicts the reason why she didn't get it, or was it their choice? But
you could have delayed this movie for her to be in it.
Yeah, I think that this would have been one where it's like, she because everything about her character and even certain things they do with her character, I was like, because I couldn't believe it from this actress. I couldn't connect with it. I was like, this feels weird, and I don't know.
It felt weird, like Kristen Dunst in Interview with the Vampire.
Yes.
Like you're like, oh no, this is not really working well for me.
Right. but
I wanted you to put one comment up on the screen, and then we can come close to closing this out.
Yeah, we got
Philly Schmokes. You see the one where he said this was an origin story, not meant to be an end-game level event. I want you to see this movie, right? You here, sir. I want you to see this movie and remember this comment you made. And then come back to us and apologize for it. Because Endgame wasn't as big a deal as this movie is. Not remotely close.
Yeah.
When you say an Endgame level event, Endgame's level event is not remotely close to being as big as this movie is.
When you understand what's really going on.
So I want you just to remember that comment. That's all it is. Remember that comment.
And
because I understand what people think.
Notice, you guys, we have said absolutely nothing about the end credit scene. Absolutely. We've talked for an hour and 9 minutes, and we have not said a peep. We have not uttered anything. But I can tell you.
But that's because I said the end credit scenes, both of them were more important than the movie. If you're gonna see this movie, just if you're gonna see the movie, and some of you are MCU fans, you're gonna see it anyway. So you buy your tickets to it, get your popcorn, and then wait in the lobby for 2 hours and 35 minutes.
Don't say that. Don't say
and
that.
then go into
Don't
the
say
theater and sit down
Don't say that.
and watch the
No,
2 end credit scenes.
let's
'Cause you get
let's
yeah.
let's change that. So,
only because I'm man enough to admit that most people who love MCU films will not like this movie. I'm not saying that's me. I'm saying most people that like MCU films won't like this movie. So they can skip it and just wait to the end credit.
so I think that we've gone through enough. If anybody cared to actually listen to us, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube or wherever or Facebook, that now you have an impression of an expectation to know the good and the bad. I think that if you're knowing this going into it and you know how long you got to sit and wait, maybe you can be able to ride it out a little bit easier. And when you get to the end credit scene, specifically the first end credit scene that Lucas loses his mind over. I was like, Lucas, why?
I don't lose my mind over anything.
He don't.
I just absolutely love that. That's the way you introduce a certain thing. I'm very, very vague here. But like the point that you introduced that, it made me look forward that you're gonna make a sequel to this movie. I'm like, because that scene reveals a lot that this movie doesn't. And you're like, wait a minute. So
you have all the questions in the world, right? You have all the questions.
You're like, if this person is that, how is that other person not this?
Right.
That's it. And I know I'm being vague, but I'm doing that purposely. Like,
right. And I'll say,
if you would like to go on Twitter, you can literally understand what I'm saying because it was posted on Twitter 3 weeks ago. I wouldn't do that. I would wait till you see the film so you can catch it.
So the second end credit scene was my favorite because I knew what was happening and I knew this character's progression and I was just so excited and then I was just slapped with a voice and I was like, I literally said in the theater, I was like, do y'all know who that is? Do y'all know what that is?
Oh,
like,
we heard because somebody put in here that you didn't say ninja. Even though you think you said ninja, you put on there, you did not say ninja. And you said, if you know that blank N-word voice, because he think he said ninja, he did not say ninja there, buddy.
but yeah. So when I heard that, dude, y'all ain't ready. Y'all ain't ready for that.
It's either one of them. Implications. Yeah, it's huge implications with both of the end credit scenes.
Yeah.
To me, those weigh more towards what you're going to get in phase 4 and 5 for Marvel than the entire Eternals movie does.
All right, closing thoughts, Lucas. What you feel about this damn movie?
Are we giving ratings now?
We're giving ratings and closing feelings.
Closing feelings about this film. If you are someone who loves the MCU, skip this movie. Because if you understand your sensibilities as it pertains to Marvel movies, this movie is not going to be for you. And all you're going to do is upset yourself when you go see it. Personally, for a person like me, and this is going to shock you, right? This is one of my favorite Marvel movies. Because I absolutely hate most other Marvel movies. This movie here, though, is one of the movies that I'll be like, okay. If I was to turn on a Marvel movie, it's a chance that I would turn this on before I turn on almost anything else. Like, and it's just because the attempt. Once you attempt to do something different, granted, the back half of it turns directly into what I hate about Marvel, but it's enough elements that are different in it that I would have absolutely no issue in possibly seeing this movie again. It's just enough of those elements. Granted, again, I said it before, I believe it's directed by the wrong person. I believe you wasted a lot of actors in it, but it's still something that I would see before, like a Shang-Chi, which I will never watch again in life. But I would see Eternals again. Black Widow, I would never watch again in life. Black Panther, it's burned out of my memory. That movie does not exist. Like, it's so many films like that from Marvel, but this one here, it looks great at times. I believe it's scored beautifully. I believe at times the actors who pull it off, especially Don Lee, who's like clearly my man crush at this point, he's so great in this film. And again, as Sam said, when Angelina Jolie is on the right side of it, it's great. When all the actors are on the right side of it, it's great. It really works well. It's just that they're on the bad side way more than they're on the good side. But it's just enough for me to be like, okay, I can sit through it in Eternals film again.
All right, so where do you rank this? I know Guardians of the Galaxy is one of your favorites.
Guardians of the
Winter
Galaxy is
Soldier.
my favorite movie. Favorite movie from Marvel was Guardians of the Galaxy. Winter Soldier is, I want to say number 2, but that third act with computer brain has always pissed me off. No, number 2 is Iron Man 1. I'm sorry. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man 1, and then possibly Winter Soldier. And Eternals is probably right under Ant-Man for me. Because I really, really like
the
Ant-Man.
first Ant-Man is really good.
The first, not the second one. Not the second Ant-Man. Eternals is definitely a top 10 Marvel movie for me. It's close to the top one of the top 5 Marvel movies for me. It's really close to that top 5 for me. Like, it is something that, again, throughout all its flaws, I could see me sitting down and watching this more than once all over again.
Yeah.
Even though it's long, because it's a drama. Like, you don't get. I never would have thought we got to the point where Marvel would even attempt to make a drama.
Right.
And this is what this is. It is a drama. It has emotional points. It has things that make you question everything about the MCU, but it has things that make you question anything about people who think they can make Marvel movies. But in the end, it's not that bad. It's bad, but not that bad. Like, not BVS bad. Like, that's what I mean by bad. Like, that movie's horrible. But this one, and I'm talking about the Ultimate Edition, not just the regular one, but not like that bad. So yeah, it may definitely top 10 Marvel films, possibly top 5 for me is Eternals.
All right. So one of the funny things about Lucas saying that, I said to Lucas, it was like maybe a week before we started watching the movie. I was like, Lucas, I'm noticing people saying some things, and they like, this don't feel like a Marvel movie. It seems like this. And I'm like, Lucas, you know what? This might actually be something right up your alley. Because you're talking about it in a way that I was like, okay, check. Yeah, check. Oh, you know what? Lucas might actually like this movie, because I felt like this movie wasn't going to be the cookie cutter mold that's the blueprint of Marvel in a way that we thought. And I was kind of like, you know what? They might go the drama route. And they did. Or at least they attempted it. And yes, it was siphoned. Yes, it was pulled back. Yes, they tried to cookie cutter it towards the back half. But honestly, I thought it was very intriguing, man. It's different in saying that, you know, normally I'm like, I was really entertained by this. I was really like, no, I actually was like processing and thinking. I enjoyed character moments. I enjoyed moments of levity. The personal moments actually worked better for me than the action moments, which is crazy because the action sometimes gets very violent, and I love violent action. I love superhero movies that go and just go for it, you know. But some of these character moments, some of the dramas and the personalities, I was like, they're getting somewhere. And honestly, I wish this was on, you know, Disney Plus right now. I'd probably be watching it. I actually had a decent time wheedling through this film. And the fact that we've been talking about this for an hour, 18 minutes, Lucas don't talk about any Marvel movie longer than 30 minutes. At all.
My review for Shang-Chi is like 7 minutes.
Ever.
I did not like that movie.
I've never seen Lucas talk about any Marvel movie over the 30 minutes. And that was probably because I pushed him to that. And so, I mean, for me, I think the proof is in the pudding. We've talked about a lot of things we didn't like, talked about a lot of things we did like, but the fact that we're even going to these routes in something that's normally just point, shoot, that's it. You know what you're going to get. But this is not that movie. And I'm always about attempts or trying something different and allowing storytelling be done in a way that you've never seen before. sometimes you're gonna fail in the attempt, and maybe this was a failed attempt in terms of getting, the MCU crowd to rally behind it. The other thing I was gonna ask you, Lucas, before we quit this and give ratings, is say hypothetically speaking, they did just go all the way for it. Do you
Oh
think the
man,
MCU people would have crucified this,
they'd
or do you?
abandon. They would have abandoned this movie
Right,
because this movie needed to go in a certain direction, and if it had went in that direction, this movie would have been great. Apps.
right,
When I say great, and I really want to pinpoint when I say great, I've seen every Oscar-winning film or Oscar nominated or film that's going to be nominated for Oscar this year. I've
yeah,
seen every single one of them. This movie had the potential to be better than all of them. It's a certain movie by a certain studio. That's a sci-fi movie that just came out last weekend. This movie had more potential than that movie at times for me. And I was like, oh God, if you just go into it, this movie can be super. It is certain conversations that are had in this movie in
yeah,
quiet moments between characters
yeah.
that don't exist in Marvel movies
They don't.
ever.
They don't.
And they can be gut-wrenching at times. And I'm like, dang nabbit, if you'd have leaned into this would have made it have been perfect. And yes, it would have made no money, and most people would not have went to go see it. But you'd have been true to the film.
Right. For a
But the attempt,
cinephile would have really truly
yeah,
appreciated
yeah.
what it was doing.
But the attempt is enough for me to be like, okay, I can watch this movie and see elements of things that I wish would have been different and still be like, okay, I like it. I can sit through it enough. I can't say that about most Marvel movies. I'm not sitting through them at all. I can fast forward through them. Most of them, I figured out their film within the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This is not that type of film.
Right. So, all right, where do you rate this? 110. Because it's really different to rate this because
God,
I mean I don't really know how to really rate it, honestly.
me neither.
I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest, because
Okay, I can do it because I can give it 2 scores because I always do it for Marvel movies. So, as a film, because it's so they lean that second half of this film is so Marvel trying to autocorrect into a Marvel movie, it ruins it for me. And for that instance, I would give it a 4 out of 10 because you leaned into something you had no business leaning into. If I judge it against every other Marvel film that I've seen, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It is something that I would prefer to watch over any other Marvel film just about ever made. I just hate the point that they felt the need to autocorrect it into falling into every trope that's the Marvel universe. It's okay if this film would have stood alone. It literally was pitched as a film that would stand alone.
yeah, that's what
And
she said that they
instead,
were gonna allow her to
yeah,
do.
instead, if you never hear from Chloe because of the director that she is, but I'm assuming this is the exact same thing that Alan Taylor felt when he directed Thor Dark 2, Thor Dark World, and the movie that was put on screen wasn't the movie he shot.
Yeah.
I want to say if Chloe was a different director, she possibly would have came out and said, this ain't the movie that I shot. Because they autocorrect this into elements that just throw me off completely.
Yeah.
But the attempt is worth the ride.
Yeah. And some of you guys that are MCU fans, you might really like this last half and going into the post-credit scenes. Maybe that is enough for you guys to be like, okay, this was still a good Marvel movie. I don't know. For me, I love both. Like I love cinema, I love drama, I love expression. But I also have a fun time with being a nerd and the comic book elements and amazing spectacles of fights. And this was kind of a fusion of the two for me. So I want to do what Lucas did, but I can't because I'm literally
give
both.
give 2 scores.
I can't do that because but I'm probably resting this at like a 7.5. out of 10, or maybe close to an 8. 7.5 I think is a safe route, because I don't like that they didn't go for it. And if they would have really went for it, this would have been like unlike anything that I really don't know if every MCU fan would have just said no. I feel like it would have been like a good half, or at least 25%, and it'd be like, wow, you gave me something completely different, but at least you went for it. I feel like there would have been some people that were rallied behind this movie in the sense of like where it is right now, because at this point now it's at 63% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's the lowest rated Marvel movie ever made, and understand, we fully understand why critics say that. This movie,
as an MCU film,
we judging this movie way more on the attempt made than the execution. That's why I say for the execution, it's a 4 out of 10. This movie is not executed well because of what they did to it. So when I read critic reviews of it, even the positive ones, it says the same thing. Like, man, y'all just didn't understand what you wanted to do with this.
Right.
And I think that's going to hurt so many people who love the MCU. But it's also going to bring a very interesting question to me. I compare this to a DC movie because DC movies been doing this for years. But you know what I noticed? That score ain't nearly as low as the DC movies that did it. I have questions with that, because if this movie would have said Warner Brothers and DC on it, it'd be a 30.
30. Yeah, I was about to say 30 something. Yeah, for sure.
It would not be in the 60s. It's only in the 60s because certain critics can't give Marvel a bad review. They just can't. They can't. And their review, if you read it, is horrible. But then they still, I'm going to call out one person because I love you and I follow you on Twitter and I look at your stuff often.
Oh, please don't say it.
But Grace, you are full of shit, because I listened to your review. I read your review. All of that is negative. And you still came out and said it did just enough to give it a fresh tomato.
Yeah, she gave it a fresh.
But you gave Suicide Squad a negative one. You're going to have to explain that to people. Because one movie is good and one movie ain't good. But you made every excuse for Eternals. And that's what I see for so many people. It's because it's a Marvel movie. You're willing to make the excuses. You can't say it's too many characters to introduce at one time. None of this makes sense. It's not executed well, but it's a fresh review. Those don't go together well at all. Be honest with it. Because here's the thing. I think if this movie would have been in the 30s, you know what we would have gotten from Marvel? They would have reverted back to making the typical Marvel movie. I think they would have attempted to lean into this more and correct all of those mistakes and say, hey, good or bad, we understand what we need to change to make it better. It's equivalent to an artist making a bad album and then giving you the next album, and those albums sound similar to one another, but you can see and hear the evolution of that project. Right. That's all I've ever said Marvel needs to do, is evolve the project. Understand it. But the problem was critics gave everything great. This is the first time you haven't given everything great. Because guess what? The last time you gave Marvel a bad review when it pertained to a movie was Thor 2. Would anyone tell me that the same elements that are in Thor 3 aren't in Thor 2, but it's elevated and executed at a better level? Because they corrected it. They understood the issues you had with it and corrected it. The same thing they did with Captain America 1 to Captain America 2. They corrected the issues you had with the film. But if you're giving these positive reviews to films that don't deserve it, how do you think they're going to correct that issue for comic book people who want better? They want better projects.
Yeah.
You know why DC is succeeding now? It's because DC has managed to make different type of projects. Yes, Wonder Woman 84 absolutely sucked balls. But that don't mean that they're not willing to correct that. DC has learned to correct their mistakes.
They've had
Marvel
to.
now needs to learn to do the exact same thing. You say that they had to, but if I pointed out to you that DC movies still average, take out the Avenger movies, solo movies, DC movies average more money than Marvel movies did. They didn't have to autocorrect, but they understood the assignment and that it needed to happen.
Yeah.
Marvel still has it because y'all gave Black Widow an 84. Who the fuck thinks Black Widow is a good movie? No one. Not even people in the MCU think Black Widow's a good movie. Iron Man 3 sits at a 79 on Rotten Tomato. Could you please point out the person to me who thinks Iron Man 3, besides Chris Powell, is a good movie? Not a single soul thinks Iron Man 3 is a good movie. That's what I mean by self-correction. Self-correction is needed. It's nothing wrong with it. And if you love the MCU, you can absolutely hate the Eternals and fully understand that they tried something different.
Oh, one thing we didn't talk about. What did you think about the score? Because this is the same person that scored Iron Man 1.
Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved this score. Like, from a technical standpoint, the Eternals, from the way it's shot to the way it's scored to the way it looks, is perfect. Perfect. Like, it looks amazing. It is scored amazingly. And like, from a technical aspect, I absolutely love this. Absolutely love it. Like, it's something to behold on just how beautiful this movie is at times.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that it was the same person that scored like Game of Thrones, Westworld, Iron Man, Pacific Rim. I had no idea.
But it makes sense though. When you hear it and you hear those other things, it makes perfectly good sense. And you're like, oh man. But then that should also tell you, because normally people who score films, you score them because they're accustomed to things that you've scored in the past. Yeah. So if he scored Westworld, Game of Thrones, and all this other stuff, you know what none of those things have in common? A Marvel movie. Yeah, to the point he scored this Marvel movie shows that they thought enough to say we need to go in a different direction. And hey, Kevin, who I never said anything positive about, I give you kudos for trying something different. I really do. Like, you are 24 films in. You know what that means? Everything should be different. Everything. You've already succeeded. At this point, it's all about doing different stuff. Fuck these people who want the same movie over and over again. Stop giving it to them. Shang-Chi is the basic Marvel movie. Like, there's no reason to do another one of those type of movies. Eternals is the film that should lead into the next phase of what Marvel films can be. Finally decide that we're going to, instead of partially giving a director control, say, you know what? I need you to put these elements in it, but this is your film. And let them have at it.
So are you advocating for Eternals 2 directed by Zack Snyder?
Look here. Look, let me tell you this. I'll put
him on the screen, y'all.
Let me tell you this. If Snyder Luther King Jr. could possibly direct an Eternals 2, you need to hire him tomorrow, let him start working on the script now, and give him full range in doing whatever he wants to do with the Eternals. If it ends up as a 3.5-hour movie, perfectly fine. Let him do it. I think he could be Marvel's hidden secret weapon, because he could do this better than anyone humanly possible. I hate him, and I still think he's the perfect director for anything as it pertains to Eternals moving forward. And I think with the characters that you introduced in this film and the things that happen in the end credits, if you gave Zack that wheelhouse and just allowed him to do what he wanted to do with it, you could have the best Marvel movie ever made. And that's something, as Marvel, you got to look into it. Stop like hiring these stock directors who have no say-so, like no mind of their own to do a film, and they can fit into a mold. You are now 20 plus movies in. There is no longer a need to hire people who fit into a mold. Your job now is to do what DC has already been doing. You hire people who can make their own movie and make them in the mold to fit what you needed to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the Russo brothers do anything else. Guess what? I've seen them try to do other things. You know what it proves to me? They can't fucking direct stuff. But they were great at doing a Marvel movie because you controlled everything. So now let these extremely talented other directors come in, pitch you a vision on what your film could be, and then let them do it. Because you started it with Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
You started it with him. Because you understood you were far enough along that you no longer had to do anything else. Chloe here, you clearly gave her a vision, but because Eternals is so big, I think you still felt the need to interject yourself into it. Film producers don't do that, Kevin. They know when to step back. It is time for you to step back, my brother. It's time for you to step back. Let these directors direct the project. DC has proven you can have success when you let directors take over the project. Because if you think you're doing the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and James Gunn is going to listen to anything you have to say, that ain't happening no more. He's past you now. He's never going to listen to anything you have to say. He's going to want to make the movie that he wants to make. So when you have enough of these avant-garde directors making the movies that they want to make, everybody who you bring in who's going to say the same thing, Disney has the money to hire anybody. If I was Marvel, it's 5 directors who I would just lock up and have them direct everything moving forward. Because you got the Fantastic Four coming up, clearly. You have X-Men coming up, clearly. With those type of projects, start locking people in now and saying, I'm going to give you this. This is yours. Hey, this is the outline I needed to fit into. I need to be able to fit into my universe. Past that, everything is up to you. Do you know the success you would have? Alfonso Cuarón is still out there. I'd have locked his ass up years ago to a project with no hesitation. It's so many people out there. It's 2 directors that we know who we absolutely love.
Hey.
I would lock them up into a projects for Marvel, and then do the same thing. Say, hey, this is what you need to do. I'm going to let it go. As long as it connects to what I needed to connect to, we're fine. All I'm saying is, Marvel, you are now at the point where you can do that. You are successful enough to do that. But if you keep on following the same formula that you've gotten to this point, guess what? It don't get better. It's going to get worse.
So wait, was Guillermo del Toro, he directed Blade 2, right?
Yes, but he did that for Warner Brothers.
So this is the funny thing about that. So he would be interesting for an X-Men project.
If only more, but you know they would have to give him everything. He's not going to take input from anybody.
Give him everything.
Yes.
Give him.
But guess what? If I'm going to do that, if I'm going to give him everything for X-Men, couldn't I give Peter Jackson anything he wanted for Fantastic Four?
Oh, absolutely. In a heartbeat.
But that's what I mean. We understand the great directors that are currently out there who could kill some of this stuff. Yeah. But you have to be willing to step back and do what Warner's did with Todd Phillips and say, hey, yes, this is a project we care about, but whatever you do is up to you. Yeah. Marvel has to stop focusing on so bad for everything to be overly connected. Give strands to connect it, and then let everything else lie in its wake. And let these great directors that are currently out there actually direct.
Yeah. It's crazy because Chloé was she directed your favorite film last year. Or was your favorite director last year.
I absolutely love Nomadland, Joe. Absolutely fucking loved it. Oh, yes, like Matt Reeves, what they're doing with the Batman. Clearly, Warner Brothers decided to let him do whatever he wanted to with that.
It's true.
And that's always been a difference. Warner Brothers allow you to do whatever you want, and Marvel doesn't. And while it does not always ring positive for Warner Brothers because they stepped in way too late to correct God Snyder and David Ayers from their projects, but it's a certain balance you can have for oversight and freedom. And I think Marvel can strike that balance because they've done it already. Do it with some of these other directors. Why the fuck have you not brought Kenneth Branagh back? Apologize to him for everything you did on Thor 1. Apologize to him. And then turn around and give him a film and see what happens. Hell, you like Corky. Wes Anderson is still out there. Hire him and let him do something. Martin Campbell's out there. Hire him to do something. Sam Mendes. How the fuck, Marvel, have you not hired Sam Mendes to do a project for you?
Like, especially when he got done with the James Bond stuff.
The moment he got done with those, you couldn't explain to me how you didn't hire him to do a project for you. Yeah, and not at the level that you are now. You have succeeded expectations. Endgame is over now. Yep. Everything you do now is new. Once you were able to start off with everything new, it's time to change the direction of your projects. That's all I'm saying.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are an hour and 40 minutes in Eternals, which I never thought we would be talking this long. So obviously there's some magic somewhere in this movie. So you guys go and check it out. Give it a chance. Let us know. We don't want to, sway you left or right. We wanted to give you guys preparation and padding. And we appreciate any of you guys that are still here in the chat. If you guys don't mind leaving a like, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell button. Go to the description bar below. Follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. We even got TikTok. And we'll be back later. If you guys want us to do a spoiler review, it'll be significantly shorter. And it will be narrowed down to the end credit scenes as well as certain implications about the Celestials. So if you guys want us to do that, let us know in the comment section.
It's going to be 20 minutes.
And in the
no
chat.
More than 20 minutes. I'm done talking about Eternals.
And yeah, that is our review on Eternals. So it was long-winded. Lucas gave it, I don't remember. I gave it 7.5.
I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Yes, I gave it 7.5.
It's a Marvel movie. 4 out of 10 for a regular movie, but a 7 out of 10 is a Marvel movie.
And give it a chance. I guess that's the best thing I can say.
That's it. Yep, give it a chance.
Like, see how you feel like, because at the end of the day, Lucas, what'll be interesting is when does this movie come out? Friday? Oh no, it's not November.
November the 5th.
So in 2 weeks, it'll be interesting to see that by that time, it might drop down to the 50s.
If it drops below 60, that means it's considered rotten by Rotten Tomato.
And if it does, it'll be interesting to see if actual fans actually start to like it. I think that'd be very fascinating. But we'll see.
We know MCU fans; they're gonna love it, and just claim that the Rotten Tomato critics don't know what they're talking about. We already know how that's gonna turn out. But just know if it drops under 60, that means critics think it's a worse movie than Venom 2.
That we cannot talk about right now. Because I actually am a Rotten Tomatoes critic, so I can't say anything. On that note, we're gonna go. Peace, guys.